Trump was seriously entertaining and asking about the use of a nuclear weapon. And that's the reason that Donald Trump later came out and admitted in the meeting, no, we're never going to use. I had an interview with one of the senior ISI persuading the Saudis, Qataris, for starters, to be accompanied by then the Kuwaitis, Bahrainis, Omanis, and then at the end, the United Arab Emirates, to want to get the United States military presence out of the Gulf, and then to accept security guarantees that Russia and China would back the war that Donald Trump settled between Pakistan and India. I firmly believe that U.S. intelligence was involved in helping provoke that. What the United States wants is chaos. We don't want Pakistan and India getting along. 46 years ago, when the U.S. was trying to get the U.S. hostages, Baluchis, who were providing intelligence, and it was being passed through rugs. They'd make rugs in Baluchistan. They'd be shipped to Bethesda, Maryland. So that's how the messages, they're being passed through rug for a rude awakening. The Chinese will be polite, but they're going to be firm. They're not going to feel the need to submit themselves or acquiesce to the United States. No, he's dead. We become a bully. And, India's experienced it as well, where we've threatened India. Do what we tell you, boy, or else. I mean, it's racist. It's condescending. Well, the issue, I was reporting what my source had said. And then when I did further checking, it wasn't so much a battle over the codes, because the reality is the president holds the codes. But what it was is that Trump was seriously entertaining and asking about the use of a nuclear weapon. And General Kane, to his credit, said, absolutely not. Very firm. So there was the issue of a nuke being used was discussed. It was shot down by General Kane. And that's the reason that Donald Trump later came out and admitted in the meeting, no, we're never going to use a nuke. Good. Got that off the table. So no, I stand by it. It was, again, it wasn't my source, but it was someone I have confidence in. Later, we got confirmation that the issue of using a nuke had come up. That was discussed, and it was shot down by General Kane. It's not so much a veto power as the role of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. By law, he is the president's senior military advisor. So he's in. Now, the chain of command for using a nuke is if Trump ordered it, it would then go to the general that's in charge of what's called Stratcom, and he would go through the Secretary of Defense or Secretary of War now, and then from Secretary of War to the general that commands a Stratcom, and Stratcom would be responsible for executing that. So the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is not in that chain of command where he can overrule the president, but his advice, he's there to advise the president, and he said, no, bad idea, don't do it. And, the implication in that is if Trump actually tried to go forward with something like that, you could see possible resignations by Chairman Kane. You just say, no, this is outside the bounds. It's unacceptable. It's an actual military consideration. General Kane wasn't expressing a political view. I mean, just look at it from a practical standpoint. What are you going to accomplish? What is it going to achieve? And the answer is nothing, except making the United States the ultimate pariah and putting us at risk of further nuclear engagements with Russia, China, North Korea, other countries. So it's, the world's already dangerous enough as it is. As you know, with, India and Pakistan as neighbors, both have nukes. It, gives you some incentive to say, let's be nice to one another. So I'm going to use a cultural reference that you won't understand, but I will explain it. So we had an American football player by the name of Conrad Dobler. And Conrad was famous. He was a dirty player. He would bite people. He'd poke them in the eye. And he was also notorious for stirring fights up between people. Like he'd say, hey, did you hear what this guy said about your mother? And next thing you know, those two guys would be fighting. That is Bibi Netanyahu, okay? Bibi Netanyahu is a dirty player. He's out there to try to stir up as much trouble. I would seriously doubt that he made any kind of secret trip to the United Arab Emirates. And I think the Emiratis, but he is keen upon stirring up trouble, because what's going on behind the scenes right now, China and Russia have combined together to create a new security architecture in the Persian Gulf. And they're working through Pakistan. Pakistan is heavily involved, both with, it has a defense pact with the Saudis, but it also has a direct communication with the Iranians. So it's a trusted partner in that. I had an interview 3 days ago with somebody that is direct friends with one of the senior Pakistan, very senior, who explained what was going on. That in fact, what Russia and China are about is persuading the Saudis, Qataris, for starters, to be accompanied by then the Kuwaitis, Bahrainis, Omanis, and then at the end, the United Arab Emirates, to accept, to want to get the United States military presence out of the Gulf, and then to accept security guarantees that Russia and China would back up. More that the assurance that, Iran would not attack the Saudis and vice versa. And there appears to be progress on that, which is, I think that's why Bibi Netanyahu came out with this story today in order to try to disrupt this process. Because we saw some evidence of this last week. Remember what Donald Trump announced on a week ago Monday, Project Freedom. We're gonna open up that Gulf of the Strait of Hormuz. And 36 hours later, he goes, "Oh, never mind. We're gonna put that on pause." Well, the reason he put it on pause were the Saudis had said, "No, you're not going to fly any more military missions out of Prince Saud Air Base. Not going to happen." Trump gets on the phone with Mohammed bin Salman and says, "Oh, please, come on, why don't you with friend?" And MBS said, "No, we're not going to do that." So Trump was forced to back away. So this, I think, reflects this broader strategy that's underway right now with Russia and China, because we saw when Foreign Minister Arachi was in St. Petersburg 2 weeks ago, Monday, after the meeting, Vladimir Putin used the word, a new strategic architecture. Then when a week later, when Foreign Minister Arachi went to Beijing and met with Foreign Minister Wang Yi, once again, you heard new strategic architecture or new security architecture. So when you've got the Chinese and Russians using the same language, that I take that on board. That's not just a coincidence. That's a policy coordination by the two. Well, and already you've had a de facto retreat by the Americans. Key bases like the Fifth Fleet headquarters that was in Bahrain has been destroyed. So the U.S. Navy commanders had to relocate to Florida. The bases, 5 bases in Kuwait, destroyed. A base in Al Udeid Air Force Base seriously damaged. 2 radars, each worth over $1 billion. Think about that were involved not only for security, to provide warnings in the West Asia area, but also it stretched up into Russia. They're done. They're gone. They're done. So already, as a result of this war, the U.S. has very, very limited presence in the forward areas. They're still at Daraf Air Base in United Arab Emirates. But if there are renewed hostilities, and I believe there will be, you're going to see those wiped out. And the United States is going to be effectively removed in terms of having a military presence, which all along was the idea. They sold it to the Saudis and the Kuwaitis and Bahrainis. Hey, let us put our bases there. We'll protect you. Sort of. I don't know. Have you ever seen a mafia movie where the mafia walks into a restaurant, the pizza owner or, a tandoor restaurant and says, "Hey, you don't want to have an accident around here, so why don't you pay us some insurance money and we'll make sure the place doesn't burn down." Well, that's what the United States was offering. The United States was offering protection money. Yeah. Well, comes the war, they couldn't protect them at all. And not only that, they didn't forewarn them. They didn't go to the Saudis and Qataris and they said, "Hey guys, heads up, we're going to attack Iran, and this might create some blowback." Might? It created major blowback, major damage to those countries. So that has further disillusioned them about this security umbrella isn't really a security umbrella. It's more like a monetary shakedown, because Also, they want you to buy U.S. Treasury bills. And also, they want you to buy U.S. military equipment that's terribly expensive and not terribly effective.
Yeah.
So you're looking at a realignment. The era of the United States ruling the world is over. A new world is emerging. It's being led by the global South. I think BRICS is. I'm not sure everyone appreciates how profound what BRICS is doing, but it is a direct challenge now to the hegemony of the petrodollar. It's also a direct challenge that the countries are going to be expected to buy U.S. treasuries in order to fund U.S. spending, which is out of control.
Yeah.
And, in the United States over the last 30 years, instead of being, a good leader to show we want to collaborate, we become a bully. And, India's experienced it as well, where we've threatened India, do what we tell you, boy, or else. I mean, it's racist. It's condescending. It does, India is the one country that ought to have a seat at the at the UN Security Council, a permanent seat, because of its size, because of its importance. But no, it still gets treated like it's some token of that belongs to Great Britain. You're still slaves to the colonial mentality, and you're not. But that was reflected in how the United States dealt with you recently, how Trump dealt with you, dealt with Modi and others on the economic front. These sanctions that you're not entitled to make your own choices as a country. Now let's flip the tables. Let's assume that India could do that to the United States. We wouldn't take it for a minute. We'd be so who do you think you are? Well, guess what? India's fully entitled to have the same reaction. So what we're witnessing is the end of what I call the colonial era of history. It started in the mid 14th century. It is extended for the last 6 centuries, and now we're in the day it's dying off. Something new is going to emerge, and the countries of the global South are going to lead the way in this, I believe. Well, to a point, but Pakistan, again, Pakistan is not acting only on Pakistan's initiative. They are acting on the initiative of China because of the relationship with China. And as such, they are providing, they've got ways to communicate with Washington. But that said, they are not sacrificing, they're not telling Iran, oh, you have to give this up. I think Iran's core demands, there are really 5 that are essential. 1, the immediate removal of sanctions. 2, unfreeze our assets. Most of the money that's frozen is money that the government of Iran, prior to the fall of Shah, had paid into Western corporations to purchase military equipment that was never delivered. So if you're not going to deliver the equipment, return the money. 3, the Strait of Hormuz is now going to be governed by Iran and Oman in a joint venture. The 4th element is that there need to be reparations to repair the damage that has been done by an unprovoked illegal attack. And last, excuse me for the dog barking. The Israeli attacks on Lebanon and the Palestinians have got to stop. Yeah. Those are 5 key demands by Iran that those are not negotiable. There's not a one of those where they say, oh, okay, never mind. We can live without that. No, those are all essential. And ultimately, the United States is going to have to agree to those if it wants the war to end and the Strait of Hormuz to come back into operation.
2 facets of that, of what you just laid out, the nuclear question and the control over the Strait of Hormuz. Since the war has been prosecuted, it seems that Iran...
Well, let me turn the question around and ask you this. Does the United States have the right to tell India how much uranium it can enrich? That's the answer for Iran. Iran takes the same position that the government of India does. Government of India is an independent sovereign state. Government of India abides by international law, unlike the United States. So I've argued all along that this whole issue of Iran, whether or not it has or doesn't have a nuclear weapon or is trying to get one, that's a red herring. That's a sideshow because the United States and Israel have been trying to destroy Iran since 1980,
Yes.
when Iran didn't even have nuclear ambitions then. So the nukes have nothing to do with it. The nukes are an excuse. They're not the cause of the conflict. So I see, Trump is boxed in because he doesn't have any good military options left. The United States is incapable of mounting a ground attack that would succeed in Iran without costing the United States literally trillions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of casualties. So that's not going to happen. Well, the hope is, and again, the U.S. needs to lift its blockade. You notice that Iran had made agreements with India that Indian ships could transit the Strait of Hormuz. It's not Iran that's blocking its maritime traffic to India. It's the United States. And that's the real irony here. The United States keeps trying to make Iran the bad guy. It's the United States right now that's interfering. The ships, Iran and Oman have made agreements, and Iran is so like it's going to recoup money from Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Kuwait and Bahrain because they allowed their states, their countries to be used as platforms to attack Iran.
Yeah.
But they're also negotiating with them. They're also talking to them. And the same like with India, as a fellow BRICS member, Iran wasn't going to. In fact, I don't think Iran was going to charge India anything, because as a BRICS member, hey, come on through. So this is all in the hands of the United States, and I think the only way it's going to change is the world's going to have to unite against my country and say this has got to stop. You have got to stop. You can't continue to try to be. You're not the boss of us all. You're just another country. We're all in this together. So behave like that. Don't behave like you're the slave master. It's sees as an adversary. So as an enemy, someone's ultimately got to be destroyed. I mean, just read what is written and listen to what is said. There's no, the vision that was opened up, good Lord, 54 years ago by Richard Nixon with his trip to India, accompanied actually by Ambassador Chaz Freeman, who was a young Foreign Service officer at the time. That was bringing China into the modern world, and the United States, for whatever reason, decided to pretend that history doesn't exist, that we never agreed that Taiwan is part of China. So, but the Chinese are sending some very clear signals. When Donald Trump arrived at the airport, was she there to greet him? The vice president. So when Vladimir Putin arrived in China, well, and same way with India. When Vladimir Putin arrived in India, who's there to greet him?
Modi's there. Yeah.
Right? Who's there to greet him in Beijing? Xi. Who's there to greet Trump? Number 2 guy. On the road from the airport into town, this was as of yesterday, a friend of mine reported on this, provided a video. The light poles, they have 2 flags attached. One was the Chinese flag. Guess what the other flag was? The newspaper, the China Daily, today, the headline was about China's talks with Tajikistan over securing the routes into Iran.
Yeah, land routes.
About the talks with Trump, it was a sidebar. And it wasn't even touting Xi to meet with Trump. No, it's just talking about Xi's got a lot of issues to deal with on trying to sort out all these, global problems. On the internet, the Xinhuan site and the CCTV site, not a mention of the meeting. So the Chinese are sending a very strong message. You're not important.
So you deny the optics of that.
Yeah, he's coming hat in hand.
Yes.
Bringing his beggar bowl. Because what is it that the United States produces that China needs? And the answer to that is nothing. Now, are there things that China could benefit from? Sure, soybeans, beef. But you know what? They can get and they have been getting soybeans from Brazil. They have been getting beef from Argentina and Brazil. So they don't need the U.S. for that. However, the United States needs China desperately. One of the things that have been highlighted out of this recent war in Iran is the depletion of U.S. military stockpiles. Tomahawk missiles, JASSMs, that stand for Joint Airstrike Surface Missiles. They're like a cruise missile launched from a plane. The PAC-3 interceptors that are used in the Patriot missile system, the THAAD interceptors.
Yep.
All of those, the stockpiles are running very, very low. They need to be replenished. To replenish them, though, they need rare earth minerals.
Yep.
Gee, who controls the rare earth minerals?
Mm.
And China has put a restriction on those. And I don't blame China. If I'm China, I'm going to go, let me see if I got this straight. You want me to give you my rare earth minerals so you can build weapons that you're going to use against me in 2 years?
Mm.
Yeah, that sounds like a great deal. I'll do that. Yeah, let's do that. Chinese are not stupid.
Mm.
So China, I think Trump is going to be disappointed that he's not going to get that. And what we're seeing is that the increasing number of purchases of oil with yuan vice the U.S. dollar. So that means the supply of U.S. dollars are now growing because they're not in demand. So that means the price of the dollar is collapsing.
Right.
And the number of people, India is not buying U.S. Treasury bills anymore. India is selling U.S. Treasury bills. India is buying gold. China's buying gold. China's not buying U.S. Treasury bills. So across the board, countries are moving away from the U.S. Treasury, which is how the United States has financed its tremendous deficit over the last 40 years. The United States has been doing the same for Ukraine, and they've been killing Russians. Okay, so if the United States is going to make a big deal of that, Russia will say, fine, let's apply the same standard. And so what are you going to do to China? Whatever you do to China, we're going to do to you. And, China's acting. Look, countries act in their national interest. Countries, China, nor India, nor Pakistan, nor Iran, Russia, none of them should act in the interest of the United States. It's up to the United States to express its interest and try to work in harmony and peace with other countries. The problem is, and I hate to say this about my own country, but we've been a bully. We have been the purveyor of more death and destruction around the world over the last 66 years than any other country. And you go and start with the death tolls in Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Somalia, Libya, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, and I wouldn't be surprised that this, the recent